Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Culture is Everything workshop. I am Chelsey Paulson, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer here at Keystone Group International. And we have these workshops every month. The intent of these workshops is to help all of us understand, and I say all of us because I always learn in these conversations as well, how we can continue to enhance culture and make our businesses and our teams a better environment for our people. And there's so much going on in the world and in our companies and within our people that this is something we need to be continuously focusing on, which is why we wanted to have a reoccurring event happening every month so that we can make sure this was top of mind for everyone. So we do record this. So if you want to send this to someone or review something afterwards, you are able to take a peek at that. We will send it out to all of those who registered in the next few days or so. We always like to touch on at the very beginning our culture model, our impact model that we developed at Keystone, because it's always helpful to get our arms wrapped around and have the same definition of what is culture. And I'm going to be asking our guests about that as well, and what our definitions of culture is, because everyone has a different way of viewing it. We created this model to help us break down the different building blocks that build up our cultures. And what this is doing, even though I say it's simplifying it, you're like, but wait a minute, there's so many blocks on there. This helps us to dive into the specific area that we might need to make some improvements in. And so as we go through these different workshops, we're hitting on different elements and different building blocks within this impact model. And today we're talking about change and resiliency when we're scaling for growth. And so this is going to hit on so many of the building blocks within the impact model. Certainly is going to hit on conscious leadership, certainly going to hit on communication and trust, empowering values, purpose, our strategic vision, systems and processes, accountability. All of this comes into play when we're talking about change and rapid growth and maintaining our culture throughout all of it, which is really difficult to do. As we talk with Nick, you'll find out that it's not impossible. It just takes some very conscious effort. So I am going to call Nick up to the front of the room here for our conversation on leading a conscious culture through rapid growth. And so Nick is the CEO and president of Creative Homes. Nick, welcome to our workshop.
Yes, thank you, Chelsey. Good morning.
Good morning. Why don't you just kind of kick everyone off and just help them understand a little bit more about your background and a little bit about Creative Homes and what it is that you guys do?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I'm Nick Hackworthy, the founder owner of Creative Homes. I'm a byproduct of the Great Recession. So I graduated college in 2008 with a very little inability to find a great job at that time. So I went into business for myself. And in 2013, had founded Creative Homes with a founding passion to really create and deliver an unmatched customer experience. And a big part of my DNA and passion in business has really been around people, and really wanted to build a company that was treating its employees and customers a little bit differently than maybe the run-of-the-mill home builder was historically doing. So we are a production home builder that primarily builds detached single-family homes. And when we started, our founding vision was to build 50 homes a year. And we're just about to complete our 10th year of business. And we scaled from startup to about 150 million in revenue, about close to 300 homes in about 10 years.
That's impressive. That is impressive. And like you said, kind of starting off in the Great Recession and trying to figure out what to do. And I feel like entrepreneurs, generally speaking, kind of have this scrappy mentality of like, I can make it work, I can figure this out, and have that drive to push things forward. And you've obviously have that. Where did your passion, you said, you wanted to build an organization around people and a company that really focused on its people. Where did your passion for people and culture come from?
Yeah, great question. I think I think it was really observing other businesses. I think I watched some other, I had some insights into some other companies, and watching what I considered their lack of culture, their lack of collaboration and just that great energy, that was certainly a large motivator and trigger. And then the other thing was the customer. You know, I watched so many other builders just not be focused on the human element, and so certainly for employees and customers, those were very motivating factors.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about culture a lot. I think it's helpful, as I said, everyone has a different definition of what culture is. How would you define culture?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of definitions, and I say I have a few variants of it myself. I mean, first and foremost, I say that it's the backbone of your organization. I mean, your culture is absolutely your backbone. Your core values embody and define your culture. I think your culture is your formal and informal guardrails and bumpers that really are guiding your employees and frankly your customers of what their experience is going to look like, either working at the organization or working with. And I am also a big believer that culture is definitely a journey, not a destination. I mean, cultures are constantly evolving, and certainly this word culture has become a very big buzz topic, probably the last decade or at least the last handful of years. That I think, you know, there's companies that have phenomenal cultures, and there's others that are really trying to aspire to have a thriving culture.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you say that it's a journey, not a destination, because you're exactly right. And the way I describe it, it's just like your strategy. You're never going to say, oh, done, check, done with my strategy. Let's just kick back and relax. And it's the same thing with culture. It's not anything that you ever like reach the top and you've accomplished it all and you're done. And I love your definition that it's guide rails. And the way, which I love it, because the way that we define it is culture is the way that we think, act, and interact. And that's exactly what you hit on. It's the way that we act and interact with our customers, with our employees. It's our core values. Our core values should be the descriptions of how you behave in the organization. And so how you think, act, and interact is really our simplistic definition of that. And I think you're exactly spot on with how we define it. And the other thing that we say is that culture and the people, they should leave better than when they came into the organization. Every day that they come in to work, they should leave feeling better, more accomplished, that they've been filled up and not feeling like they're completely drained of their energy and no energy to do anything else the rest of the night, right? Like they should feel like they're still jazzed up and excited. And obviously people are going to have bad days, but for the most part, we're filling people up when they're at work and not depleting them of their energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've scaled the business from 0 to 150 million in revenue, which is absolutely amazing. What role do you feel that culture played in scaling your business?
Yeah, so I'd say that it plays arguably probably the most important. I mean, a couple things that I'd share on our journey. A major turning point for us, again, we started in 2013, was embracing Traction EOS, which I think many people are probably familiar with. But that was a very important piece in that it helped. While we had this culture and it had this vision, it was a framework to really define this vision, better define what our culture was, where we wanted to go. And certainly some of the biggest takeaways that I was absolutely amazed by. I mean, again, my founding vision was to build 50 homes, and I genuinely thought it would take 5 to 10 years to do it. And then it was 100. And I really thought that would take a decade, and to scale to well beyond that in the time frame we did. I give all the credit to the power of when you have people, amazing people that are aligned on a vision and that have commonality within their core values, commonality in their purpose to serve the company, their peers, and our customers. The rapidness that you can scale, I was truly mindful. I never would have expected things could happen as fast as they did, and I believe it's a true testament to the power of alignment of culture of people.
Yeah. So you just hit. I need to show this again, because you just hit on what we call the foundational building blocks of culture. is everything that you just described. And whether it's EOS or Pinnacle or scaling up or any operating system out there, it's all, the purpose is all the same, is to build this strategic foundation so that we're all aligned on the vision. Where the heck are we going and how are we going to get there? Why are we doing this? And I've been talking with a lot of leaders about this, and they say, oh, millennials or Gen Z coming in and they don't care. I'm like, au contraire, it's quite the opposite. They care a lot more than some of the older generations tend to. They want to be connected to the purpose. Why are we doing something? And it's not to make money, right? There's something bigger and deeper than that. And so connecting to the purpose and the values, I mean, everything you were just talking about is that foundational element. And if you don't have that, it's just like building a house like you do. You can't build it on a shaky foundation. You would never do that. And so if you don't have a solid foundation to build a house on, it's not going to last very long. And it's the same thing with our businesses. And so as you look at those foundational elements, is there anything else that kind of calls out to you that you feel like you guys do really well?
I certainly think we do well in having a very consistent messaging over and over with what our vision is, and that's communicated, at monthly in-person meetings. It's communicated through our marketing and brand. It's communicated on the walls of our office. It's talked about in our meeting pulse. I mean, I feel very strongly that all of our employees have a very clear understanding and could articulate the key components of what our vision is, what our purpose is, what our core values are. And I guess the other thing that I would stress, back to your question about just scaling a business, is the importance of truly having the right people, is to find those that align within your culture. And maybe in a later question, we're going to talk a little more about that, because I can tell the good and bad stories of what happens when you don't have right people.
Yeah. Well, and the consistent messaging, so we do assessments around each of these building blocks in organizations, and we'll come back and say, are you red, yellow, or green in each one of these building blocks? Every single culture assessment that I have done, intentional communication has came back red, because it is so hard to be truly really good communicators and consistent and intentional with what we're doing. But when you can do that and you have a focus on it, and I'm sure you would you still have room to grow and improve with communication, because we always do. But when you do that really helps to build the culture, to build the foundation, and to help drive things forward, specifically with scaling a business. Because if you're like any other businesses that I've worked with that are scaling quickly, there's a lot of things that are changing and moving parts and different things that are going on. So if we're not communicating frequently and consistently, it just becomes kind of a cluster, and people get lost in it and overwhelmed usually.
Yes, and I would definitely reinforce that. Yes, I'm still on that journey and growing with that communication piece as well. And I would just add that it's, as a reminder, it's especially for an owner, or maybe for somebody that has more tenure, or a leader, it's so easy to think like we forget that we're sometimes so close to it, and it's embodied as so much that we might have new employees or other, that it has to constantly be reinforced, and it can at times feel like, how much more are we going to talk about this? But while it might be the 1,000th time for myself, I mean, it could only be the 5th time for an employee, and just that constant reinforcement that you really have to talk about it till you're almost blue in the face.
Yeah, 7 times 7 ways, right? Till people hear it the first time.
Yep.
And the way that we talk about this is, I think what you're saying is, we call it the marathon effect. And so as leaders, we're deep in the conversations, we're doing the research, we're having these meetings. We might have been involved in a change situation or something that we're working on for months or maybe even years. And then all of a sudden we bring the employees in, and we might be at mile 22, right? The Twin Cities Marathon's this weekend. So we might be at mile 22 of the marathon, and our people are still tying their shoes. And so we need to close that gap and realize that we've been in this a lot longer than they have, and we need to help bring people along in the race. And do they need to get to mile 22? They might not. They might need only to run the 10 mile. I'm running the 10 mile this weekend, so I don't need to do the full race. So where do we need to get our people to with the communication, and realizing that we don't need them to be necessarily where we're at, but understanding the different stakeholders and how do we communicate and what do we communicate to each of them to bring them to where they need to be for whatever the communication topic is or the change that's going on.
Yes, and I just add that I think the magic of it, something that gives me a lot of joy and fulfillment, is when you have this created, then watching it become self-fulfilling, and the people, it's like this self-weeding or maintaining garden. When you just start seeing your other employees, and they could be long tenured people or people that are even newer to an organization that are stepping up as cultural leaders in an organization, that literally can happen in a matter of just even being there for just months. People could be cultural leaders, and to watch them step up and lead your culture within for others is really fun to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. So resiliency. There's been a lot of talk about resiliency specifically over the last couple of years with everything that's been going on. What role do you think that resiliency plays in culture?
Yeah, well, certainly with everything that's gone on the last couple of years, I think there's companies that have had resiliency and that have had strong cultures. These times have created winners and losers, and that I think there's organizations that have actually improved through these tough times, and others are struggling. And that could be, they could be struggling with their customers, they could be struggling financially, they could be struggling with their people. But absolutely the importance of how culture and resiliency play. And I'll just speak for ourselves. I mean, I've been remarkably proud of through arguably the most challenging of times to deal with supply chain and logistics and close downs and people gone and all the stuff that our COVID environment has brought. I mean, our team really stepped up, and I mean, we actually hit new all-time highs of customer satisfaction through when times when our industry was falling backwards, and to see that demonstrated. I mean, I certainly think that speaks to resiliency and just, and the other thing that a video that I've actually just shared with our team yesterday from the Duke women's basketball. She's the head coach. I think it's Kara Lawson. I just love it, and if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's called Do Hard Better.
I have seen it. It's phenomenal.
Yes, she talks about, and it's true. And I shared, and I had a whole bunch of our employees, especially some of our older people later in their careers, in their 50s and 60s, they were like, this is absolutely true, that life doesn't get easier. Yeah. You know, there's not this easy button. I mean, things don't get easier. So do hard better. And that certainly speaks to the resiliency.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think so much of the resiliency is mindset. And I think so many times I've been guilty of this. It's like, when things slow down, I'll do this. When things get easier, I'll do this. And the reality is that we today are in the slowest time of change that we'll ever experience again, because it's only going to get faster and faster. Change is not going to slow down. It's only going to speed up from today going forward, just like it has over the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And so we need to change our mindsets around change, around resiliency, around doing hard things, because they're going to keep presenting themselves. And like you said, it creates winners and losers. Are you with us or are you not?
Yep.
Are you going to be able to keep up or are you not? So with all of this change, with all specifically in the industry that you're in, there was a lot of supply issues, a lot of changing, moving parts there. How do you create stability in this very unstable and volatile market?
Yeah, so certainly the two things that come immediately to mind are communication and consistency. The importance of over communicating to people what's going on. I know that my first major test as a leader was when COVID hit, and things were, I mean, literally changing by the day and every day. I mean, as we all remember what that looked like, and just trying to communicate to people, because everybody there's so much unknown and fear and so many different things. So the importance of just over communication. And then I think consistency. I know that we try and be very intentional with the consistency of both professional and, one of our values is work hard, play hard. And so it's really trying to have consistency with obviously our work product, but also all the things we do is to have fun as a team, whether that be our, beer 30s on Fridays, or we quarterly team events, or holiday parties and stuff, that again, the importance of consistently having that stuff. So I would definitely focus on communication, over communication, and with that transparency and vulnerability. Not as a leader portraying that, you know what, it's okay to not have all the answers, and what I'm going to commit to is being transparent, authentic, and as things come, we'll continue to be transparent with that communication and be flexible as well.
Yes, to everything you just said. Yes. So good. I mean, and when I think about what you're saying too, with everything, communication, consistency, transparency, vulnerability, all of those things are what build up trust in our organizations. And if on our model, trust is the cornerstone of culture. And if you don't have trust, you don't have anything. Every single relationship is based off of trust. And all those things that you just talked about is exactly how you build trust. And people kind of get worked up about, well, how do you build trust and how do you do this? And it's one little act at a time. It's the way you think, act, and interact, how you communicate, how you share transparently about what's going on, and openly and vulnerably about, I don't have all of the answers. And I think if the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's that we don't have all the answers. And we can't put ourselves up on the top of this pyramid and say, we're going to figure this out as a leader. We need our team to help us make the right decisions or the best decisions with the information that we have. So I'm totally on board with everything that you said. I think that's awesome. What role do leaders play in culture, in scaling the business? You had mentioned having the right people. What role have you seen that as you've kind of built your leadership team?
Well, certainly it plays a very important one. The things that come to mind that I would stress is the importance of right people and taking a healthy team over us. I mean, I believe a healthy team can outperform a smart team 7 days a week, and I've certainly lived through that. And in fact, I'm yet to probably have somebody that was an obvious not culture fit. They could be smart, they could be an awesome human being, but if they didn't fit the culture, it's never worked. And I've tested that. I've tried that. I'm like, oh, this one's going to work. And every time I get proven wrong. And I would just stress, and I've learned firsthand where, again, with scaling, I was going places that I'd never been. And so there was times where I'm like, I need to have people that have been there and done that. And one of the things that I learned, if I did things again, is I went out and hired some people that have been there and done that, but they weren't aligned with the culture or the vision, and it caused a lot of stress. Yeah. And it did not work. And if I did it again, I would have 100%. And eventually what we did do is we really elevated people that we knew were the right people. And maybe they hadn't been in the role, maybe they didn't have the experience yet, but they knew our vision, they knew our culture, they were strongly aligned. And having that versus people that have had tons of experience or are really smart, I'll take culture fit any day of the week.
Yeah. Well, give me an example of I don't need a name, but of a leader that wasn't a culture fit, and just some of the ramifications that had. Like what did that do to the culture or the team or projects, or kind of what was the outcome of having a leader who wasn't the right fit?
Yeah. I've got so many stories I can share, Chelsey, but what comes to mind is I can actually think of a couple where we've had a couple people at a leader level that they were not in alignment with what our culture was and our vision, our values, and what were the effects. A couple things happened. One, there was some undermining that was happening, and there was a subculture that started to get created that was hiding things and maybe telling me what I wanted to hear, and it wasn't aligned with our real identity. And one of the other big effects, with the two major effects, one, that was going to start running off really great talent within our organization. That people, they say, they don't quit companies, they quit bosses and managers, and so that was happening. And then the other thing is, it actually created some confusion on our own identity, because we had leaders that were not embracing and understanding the Creative Homes way. They were bringing in their past experience or a different company's way, And so with that, we actually launched a theme one year called Why Creative, where we really focused on both for our employees and our customers it was all around culture. Why creative? Who are we? Why do we do the things we do? Because it shook our identity a little bit. It's like, who are we? And as you're scaling, you're also breaking through. Your identity can change. When you're a startup business, what you do and who you serve can be a lot different than when you're scaled larger. And we certainly went through some identity pains through that process.
Absolutely. Well, I think you said something really important, is that if you're hiring in leaders that aren't the right culture fit and you're letting them stay within a leadership role, what is that saying to the rest of the organization? What am I hearing you saying is people are getting confused. Like, wait, if this is what we're saying a leader is, then our culture isn't exactly what I thought it was, because that's who's leading the people. And it creates confusion, and you use the word subcultures, which I think is a great term. And sometimes subcultures are okay if they're the right subcultures, because
Correct.
especially as you get to be a larger organization, your teams or departments or locations might have their own subculture, which is okay if it is still in support of and in alignment with the larger organization's culture and values. But if it goes off, veers off to the left or the right or whatever, that's where things kind of go downhill and becomes very confusing of who are we? Yeah. So I want to cover something really quick and then talk about your experience with this. So we talk with our clients a lot about hitting the ceiling, meaning you've grown to a point and you keep bonking your head up against the ceiling, whether it's as an organization with revenue or number of homes built or whatever it might be, or as a team, and you just feel like we're just not making any progress as a team, not moving things forward, or as an individual, like I can hit a ceiling too, where I just don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. I'm just doing the same hamster wheel day after day. And so we talk about that there's 6 different things that you can do to try to break through this ceiling. And the very first thing is to simplify. What can we do to simplify what we're doing? Is it our processes? Is it our product offerings? Is it our onboarding process? Like, where are we struggling? Where are we hitting the ceiling? And is there something we can do to simplify that? The KISS concept, keep it simple, stupid. Where are we overcomplicating things? The second is conscious leadership, which we were just talking about, is if we have the right people in the right seats, as far as leaders are concerned, well, first, anyone's concerned, but specifically leaders, that's going to allow us to scale and to grow. I'm a big John Maxwell fan, and he has a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And one of his laws is the law of the lid. And so that's saying that if you're, rating on a scale of 1 to 5, if a leader is a level 3 leader, then their team is only going to be able to be a level 1 or a level 2. But if that leader can level up their lid to a 4 or 5, that's going to level their team up. And so to the extent that our leaders can continuously grow and improve and expand their abilities, our company will be able to grow. So that's the second way that you can break through the ceiling. The third is to look, what are the trends on the horizon? So as we're looking out, what's coming down the pipe in our industry, in adjacent industries, so that we can try to get ahead of the curve, make some futuristic, maybe higher risk decisions to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game and not just following status quo and doing what everyone else is doing. So that's a third. The fourth is systems and processes. So what processes do we have in place? What systems do we have in place to help us be successful? If we don't have those documented, or if we have them documented, but we haven't trained people on them, or we have them documented and we've trained people, we're not holding them accountable to these processes, that's an area where we can see a big lift often. If we can get people doing things consistently and repeatedly, it can help us break through ceilings. The fifth is having the right structure for growth. And so this is looking at, what is your accountability chart structure? What is the right structure for growth? Always looking out, the next year. What does good look like? Where do we need to be the next year with our structure? What positions might we have that are going to open up that we need to fill, and who are we going to be, backfilling those with? So looking at that structure. And then the last one is intentional communication, which we've talked about a lot already. But if we are not communicating consistently, transparently, vulnerably, like you talked about, it's very hard to break through that ceiling and get to the next level. So those are kind of the 6 basic things. So again, simplify to scale, conscious leadership, trends on the horizon, systems and processes, structure for growth, and then intentional communication. So as you look at your business, I know you've had really great success and you've scaled a lot, but I'm assuming during the last 10 years, you've hit the ceiling as an individual, as a team, as a company. So help us understand what have been some of the ceilings that you've hit and how have you broken through those?
Yes. Yeah. So definitely have hit many ceilings the last 10 years, myself and our organization. And we've probably, in some way or form, we've hit all the ones that you just outlined. And I talk about a couple things. And first, I just say, at least in our business, and I'm sure many of our businesses, there's just different levels of scale where these things impact you. Your systems and process and your structure needs to be different when you're building under 50 homes versus 100 versus 250 versus 500 versus 1,000. And so certainly for us, as we broke through ceilings, a couple that I would talk to, one was really core focus. Again, simplifying. When you're a startup, you're starving for revenue, so you're kind of like willing to be anything to anybody to try and generate revenue to keep your lights on. And as once you become more stable, a big thing that we embraced that was ginormous for our I'd say our improvement of our culture, our customer experience, our profitability, was the focus on the should, could, would. What should we be doing? And identifying and really simplifying our home offerings. We offer less plans now at our volume than we did when we were, a quarter of the size organization that we are. So certainly simplifying things, as well as breaking through ceilings with processes, systems and process. And as you're scaling, you've got people that have more tenure that it seems natural, like, well, of course we know what our process is. And it's so easy to forget that when you're onboarding new people and you're scaling departments, that you have to have the process documented. You've got to provide ample training. I mean, I can think of countless times where we're looking at people like, gosh, I don't know that this person's cutting it. And we got to look at ourselves first and go, okay, have we really set this person up for success?
Yeah.
Have we given them the tools, the resource, the time, the training for them to be competent at their job? And then certainly structure. I mean, the structure accountability chart, ours, again, with different thresholds of size, things change. And the importance of having the proper structure. And frankly, one of the biggest things that I would say, I don't know what our audience looks like today, but for me as an entrepreneur and a visionary, is that kind of entrepreneur person or visionary of also getting out of the way. It was so, I love what I do. I'm proud of what we do. I love our people. My intentions are I always mean well, but I could be there's plenty of times that I need to get the heck out of the way of our organization, out of our people, just out of people's way, and being aware of that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. So a couple of things that you said I think are really important is that as you scale, you might have processes in place. You might have who you think are the right people in place. But as you grow as a business, things change. And you need a different set of skills, a different set of type of leaders, capabilities, backgrounds, experiences. Can your leaders you have today grow into that? Maybe, if they want to, right? And they have the capabilities and desires to do so, maybe. Will your processes grow with your business? No, like they need to be iterated and change as you grow because you're, like you said, 50 homes versus 100 homes versus 300 homes is going to look very different in an organization. So I think that iteration, that continuous improvement mentality is really, really important. So what I want to do is I want to do some table talk here, and Nick and I will hop into each of the tables to help kind of facilitate this conversation. But it's a pretty simplistic question that I'll put up on the screen here for you to take a peek at, is just what is the ceiling that you're hitting right now? Maybe it's personally, maybe your team, or maybe it's your whole organization. What ceiling are you hitting? And then how do you think you can use one of these 6 steps to help break through that ceiling? So we're going to hop into the tables and have some conversation. Again, the different 6 ways that you can break through the ceiling is simplify, leadership, looking for trends, looking at our systems and processes, looking at your structure, and then intentional communication. So those are the 6 different ways. So Nick and I will hop into the tables and help facilitate some of this conversation and then come back up. And we're going to be looking if there's anyone who wants to share, has an aha moment that they want to share with the group. We'll ask you guys to come up to the front here to share that after we break. So we'll take about 10 minutes or so in the tables. So we'll see you over there. All right. We're going to wrap it up with that initial table talk. We will do one more table talk to close things out in a few minutes here. But I'd like to, Nick, if you're wrapping things up, that would be great to come back up. And then we're going to have a couple of you share your kind of aha moments or kind of things that you learned or thought about as you're thinking through breaking through that ceiling, again, either personally as a team or as an organization, and then what you think could help you break through that ceiling to get to that next level that you're trying to get to. Welcome back, Nick.
Sorry, I saw you in that meeting. I didn't realize that you were up here too.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So I know Marty from our group was willing to come up and share. So Marty, if you just want to click, jump to the front there. Hello. So thank you for being willing to share. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Let us know the ceiling that you feel like you're hitting and how you're going to try to break through it.
Well, like I said, I think for us, I'm work for an engineering firm. We got 4 offices across the Midwest here, and I think a lot of it was just trying to get everybody pulling a lot of what we do in the same direction. So I think for us, it's been trying to shore up and communicate processes, and like we talked about, what we're learning in that effort is there's so many of the other tools that kind of come into that, trying to simplify some of what we do, and then of course the communication of it has been very, very critical to trying to make that all happen. But I think at the end of all of it, just getting everybody back on the same page, doing a lot of the stuff the same way from location to location, the ability to share work between our staff has just been crucial to get those processes shored up. So.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, you hit on so many of those different elements that you can use to break through the ceiling, and processes is a first step. But then you have to have really good communication to help people understand those processes, and then accountability to make sure they're actually following them. So it's not just creating the processes, it's the whole follow through and accountability of it as well. So there's a lot that goes into that. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Marty.
Thank you.
Nick, did you have anyone from your table who was willing to come up?
Yeah, I didn't do as good a job facilitating, and we kind of ran out of time there. So I'm going to kind of voluntold Erin Mason if she wants to come up to share her.
Perfect. Erin, if you just want to hit jump to front, you can join us up here.
I didn't get her permission.
And then if you can't see it, if you hit the little arrow on the left-hand side, it opens up the map. And then up on top, it says people drive culture, culture is everything. Just hit jump to the front.
There we go.
There she is. Welcome.
Doing it the first time. And I use a pen, so sometimes it's not as cooperative.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, no, I had commented one thing that Nick had said just in the presentation was trying to be everything to everyone, and everyone meaning clients. Yeah, I mean, that just is, when you're small, it's hard. And then you rope in your mindset. I know that I'm the biggest obstacle in my business currently. So it's just, and I'm ready to, I want to get off that hamster wheel, right? Like I really, I want more focus. So, and that's why I'm working with Keystone.
I was gonna say, we didn't quite talk about this, Erin, but so that's your issue. What's your plan?
Well, like I said, I'm working with Keystone. I mean, I still don't know. I still have not yeah, kind of figured out where does that focus happen. I mean, I certainly have identified a target audience that we want to work with, and have narrowed down the industries. But even still, I feel like I really need to focus on just one industry. Not right now. I have a lot of experience in 3 to 4 industries. So letting go of those other 3.
Well, I think what's so hard is just because you can do it all doesn't mean you should do it all.
I know.
And I'm sister, I'm with you. Like I'm like, oh, I can do all of this. Well, no. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and two, for us, I mean, as over time, technology is always changing, right? And so, how do you stay relevant? How do you utilize new tools that are coming to the market, and leverage them to deliver a better product or experience? And so, sometimes that's what kind of creates some of the, trying to be everything to everyone, because, well, gosh, everything's going towards video. So now we've got to embrace video. And so that's, I just have to put my feet in the sand and say, no, we're not going to. Or, So, so that's why I said, like, that's why I'm working with Keystone, because, hold me accountable.
And it's hard because we do need to be looking at the trends and what's coming, but then we need to be strategically making a decision of we're moving forward with video or we're not, or we're going to wait until Q2 of next year, right? It's so that our minds can focus on what is it focusing on now. It's not to say we're not going to do this in the future, but we're time boxing it. We're going to give it 6 months or a year or whatever, and then we're going to look at something else, and or we're going to try something for 6 months and see if it works. If it doesn't, then we can cut ties. And just because we try something doesn't mean we have to stick with it and move forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Erin. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
Yep. And you can just hit join table again to go back to your table. Awesome. Well, this has been really, really good. Really great conversation, Nick. We're in such alignment, which is why we wanted to have you on, of just your thought process around the importance of people, the importance of culture, the importance of communication, really working with our people and having that focus and that purpose and structure. I think there's a lot of aspects that go into this, and I didn't really ask you to prepare for this question, but if people could do one thing, and that's kind of my next step, is ask people, what's one thing what one step that you can take next? What's one commitment that you can make? What would you say would be one of the most helpful things for people? If you could do anything, where would you start?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. One is, if you don't have a culture, I think you got to define what your culture already is, and there's aspirational values like, hey, we want to become this, but you got to start with, like, what do we already stink of? Like, what's the DNA of this place already? And I think you got to know where you really are. And then I think, and obviously people are going to be all over the gamut of where they are, and then just identifying where does it you want to go, but you can't just like sprinkle pixie dust and all of a sudden, if you've got this old legacy tired culture, become this like hip fun place. It's never going to happen overnight. I mean, change is really slow, and it's got to be. So I guess identifying where you actually are, where you want to get to, and what are the micro steps that you're going to take along the way, because it truly is just a journey.
Yeah.
It starts with vision. I mean, I just look at the vision. So much of what we have was born out of just casting a vision and then chasing it.
Yeah. That's powerful. It's what's our baseline, right? Where it's self-awareness, and you can't do anything until you know where you're at. So I think that is such an important message for everyone, is how do we get a baseline of where we're at? Is it doing an assessment? Is it doing a culture assessment on all the building blocks and helping us understand where we're strong and where we're weak? Do we have a good idea of that? And if so, okay, then where are we going? Let's cast a vision for what we want our culture to look like and feel like and smell like and all of those things, and then create a plan to go after it.
And embracing, Yeah, you can't be everything. So it's embracing what you're good at, who you are. I know if I could sprinkle pixie dust, the one thing that I would love is to have this like amazing, highly accountable culture. And the problem is I struggle with accountability. So it's really tough to create this ginormously accountable culture if that's not like at its core of its people, or especially of its leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, again, the importance of leaders is our leaders are who our organization is going to be, because they are set as the standard of here's what the expectations look like as a leader. So I think that's important to remember. Okay, so Nick and I are going to hop back into the tables. I want to wrap up with one question, which is, what are you going to commit to doing today, tomorrow, by the end of this week to help further your culture, to help you break through a ceiling? So what is one commitment that you're going to make to help move either your culture forward or make sure that we're going to help kind of break through a ceiling that we're hitting? And then in lieu of doing our this monthly workshop next month in October, we're actually doing an in-person culture cohort event that is going to be in Minneapolis. Actually, technically might be St. Louis Park, is at Brookview Golf Course. So it's going to be on November 9th from 3:30 to 5:30. And it's going to be specifically around change in culture. So in line with kind of what we're talking about today, but how do you keep culture top of mind when there's a lot of change, specifically technology change that's happening in your organization? So if you're interested in that, you can go to our website to sign up. It's just $35 in person, a couple of hours, great networking, great people, great panelists that are going to be there talking about change in culture. So again, that's November 9th instead of our October workshop that we would have had for this Culture is Everything. So, all right, Nick, if you want to hop back to table one, I'll hop back to table two. Again, what's your commitment that you're making to the group that you're going to do this week to start that next step, your first next step?